Okay, let's talk about what your membership as a shareholder in Limpopo-Lipadi includes. Well, the philosophy or the principle, the model here is based on two balances. On the one hand, you want to enable each shareholder to visit as often as they like, whenever they like, on the reserve and participate in all the conservation projects. And on the other hand, you want to minimize your human impact or your human footprint, and therefore development of lodges and camps. You want to keep that as small as possible. So the whole idea is to bring a balance between these two sides. And so therefore we've got two options. We've got a shared ownership option where shareholders would have, and that's the gold memberships, where shareholders would come and enjoy river camp, which is a shared accommodation area. And then we also have a private exclusive option where that's the diamond membership, where shareholders would come and have built their own private lodge, and they use it exclusively only for them and their friends. Now, obviously, there is, and I'll go into more detail about what that entails, but there is a limited amount of these diamond memberships. Now, thus far, over the last almost 2 years since we've opened River Camp to shareholders, we only had about an 40% occupancy throughout the year, except for Easter, which you normally have quite a high occupancy. And therefore, we find that we still are not at a point where we necessarily need to expand into further camps, although obviously as we sell more shares, more shareholders will be coming out, the occupancy will increase, and we would want to increase or expand our camps. So all the time we will look at this balance between occupancy and number of shareholders that are coming out, and we will ensure that shareholders find it easy and comfortable to book when they like, even on short notice. In fact, most of our shareholders book a month in advance or even 2 weeks in advance, and it shows you that they find that there is quite a bit of space available for that kind of thing. Right, so let's look at the different detail on the gold membership. If you purchase one share in Limpopo-Lipadi, that automatically gives you one gold membership. So what happens practically is that every year a gold member or a shareholder may appoint himself or another adult older than 21 years as the sole beneficial user of that share. That means they may visit the reserve during that year. And of course, that sole beneficial user can bring their family and friends along, as long as he or she is present during the visit and takes responsibility for the guests. Obviously, we don't want to just let anybody in the reserve that doesn't take ownership, that doesn't share our passion for the reserve, that wouldn't be careful on how they treat the assets of the reserve, including the game, the veld, the vehicles, the lodges, etc. So therefore, every year, and normally at our AGM in October, that's when our year starts, you then choose whether it's yourself as a shareholder or whether it is a family member or a friend for the coming year. You appoint that guy as a sole beneficial user, and he may then come, and he needs to then take responsibility and be present during any visit on behalf of that share. Now, gold members may visit as often as they like for up to 14 days per visit, and they may make up to 2 bookings in advance per share. So that means you may book a 2 week booking in let's say March, or you could split it into a week booking in March and a week booking in June, or you could even do a 4-day booking in February and a 10-day booking in March. So any combination of bookings you can make, as long as the total of your bookings at any given time doesn't exceed 14 days. Now, you can also immediately, once the first part of your booking lapsed, make another booking. So, for example, if you book 7 days in March and 7 days in June, once you've taken your 7-day booking in March, you can actually book another 7 days in July now, and before you even visit in June. You may also extend your visit once you are on the reserve, depending on availability. So let's say that first 7 days in March, you come and you want to extend for another 3 days, and there is a lodge open, or even the lodge that you are in is still open for the next 3 days. You're welcome to extend. It doesn't impact on your total 14-day booking at all. So, so basically, on your last day of that booking in March, you can either decide to stay longer, or you can decide to then immediately book another 7 days in August or whenever you like, as long as your total bookings at any given time doesn't exceed 14 days per share. Then another thing to note is that Botswana only allows 90 days per year for foreigners without a residence permit. So that means that if you come into the border on your 91st day, they're going to stop you and say, well, you've already spent 90 days per year in the country for this year, and you can't enter the country any longer. Now, most of our shareholders never come, more than 3 months in a year. In fact, they just don't come even close to for longer than a month a year. But if ever you come to a point where you may be retired and you really love Limpopo-Lipadi and you do want to come for a longer time period, obviously, especially if you have a diamond membership where you've got your own private lodge, then we can arrange at that time for you for a residence permit. It's not that difficult, especially since you've got a business in Botswana, you are an investor in Botswana. It is really easy to organize a residence permit for you. Okay, now what if you have 2 shares? That just means, well, before I get to 2 shares, let me just mention, as a gold member, you may book a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom lodge in River Camp during any visit, so depending on availability. So a 2-bedroom lodge would accommodate up to 4 adults and 4 children, because the 2 bedrooms each has got a pull-out couch, and so you can practically sleep 2 children per pull-out couch. So you can actually squeeze 2 children in each of the bedrooms if there's 2 adults with them. But you could have 2 adults sleeping in one bedroom and 2 children plus another 3 smaller children sleeping in the other bedroom. So any combination of that you can do. In a 3-bedroom lodge, you have 2 bedrooms with pull-out couches, and then another 3rd bedroom with only 2 single beds. And so therefore you can ideally sleep 6 adults and 4 children, or maybe 2 adults and 6 children. Depends on how you want to mix and match it. Now, if additional persons in your party, if there are any additional persons above the numbers required accommodation, additional lodges can be booked at an extra charge. So that is also possible. Okay, again, it depends on availability. 1 gold share is ideal, therefore, for family members up to 6 people, and or whether they got children or not, up to 4 children, who want to book in advance for up to 2 weeks at a time or 14 days, or take shorter visits, which totals 14 days over any period of time. So if you're going to if you know you're never going to be able to come for longer than 14 days at any given time, or knowing that your schedules would be quite fixed, you're not going to have an open return ticket, so you can't go for 2 weeks and then simply just extend your visit for another week or another 2 weeks. You would have to then basically stick to that 2-week period. I also know that if in any given year you can't come out to the reserve, you're not going to be able to come out. You can actually rent out your SPU right to outside parties. So you can give it to a friend or even somebody you don't know, as long as they understand the guidelines and the rules, and you can then rent out that right for that coming year to somebody else, and maybe even make sure that through that rental you cover your levies for the reserve or whatever. Right, 2 shares or 3 shares or any more shares is just a multiplication of 1 gold share. So if you want to be able to book 28 days in advance, we can also split that up into 4 bookings. You purchase 2 shares. If you want to have another 14 days over and above 28 days, again, you can purchase another share that gives you 3 shares. And of course, with 2 shares, you can also accommodate more people. You can now have 2 2-bedroom lodges, or you can have 2 3-bedroom lodges without any further or extra charges to have extra people. But most people actually purchase more than 1 share because of the vision of leaving a legacy for their children. So if they have 2 or 3 or 4 children, they purchase a share for each one of their children, so that one day when those children are older and they have their own families, they can still bring their families, and they've got their own personal share, and they have the flexibility to come whenever they like, as they like. Okay, 5 shares, which is a diamond membership. That means a diamond member may build their own exclusive lodge within the architectural guidelines of Limpopo-Lipadi for their private use at designated spots on the reserve. Now, there are 12 spots on the Limpopo Riverbank, and there are still 2 spots available there, but there are more spots available within the reserve. And the feeling is that we will limit the number of private spots to around anything between 15 to 20 spots in total, and not go more than. We're not going to have 100 lodges, private lodges on the reserve at all. So that's that. And so if you're interested in such a private spot, if you come out to the reserve, we'll show you some of these beautiful spots on the reserve, and what it entails. The 5 shares that you pay for that diamond membership exclude your lodge price. Of course, your lodge price is determined on what you decide to build. Whether if you decide to build a tented camp for you and your family, a nice luxury tented camp, obviously you're welcome to do that. That would be a lower cost. But if you go for a fully fledged lodge similar to River Camp, 400 square meters, you're going to end up around €1,000 or 10,000 Rand per square meter, depending on your structure and your finishes. But that gives you an idea of that extra cost. Then, and obviously, you would also have to maintain your own lodge. So, any maintenance costs on the lodge you would pay for. However, your services would be included, such as water and electricity, because that's included in your levies. Okay, now in terms of self-catering, groceries and chefs, the lodges are all self-catering, so you can purchase groceries on the way to the reserve. In South Africa, there are quite a number of Woolies or Pick n Pays as you move from Joburg through Pretoria and up into Limpopo province. Or you can order it from a local service, one of the local farmers' wives. She's got a service where she gets your grocery list and she purchases your groceries and deliver it to your lodge before you arrive. And then you may also restock on groceries during your stay at Limpopo-Lipadi. There's a town called Limpopo-Lipadi, about 100 kilometers north of Limpopo-Lipadi, and you can just take a day out and drive there and go and buy groceries, or you can have the staff collect it at an extra charge. You may book a chef for any one of your meals. There's a per meal charge for a chef. So if you have the groceries there, they can cook anything for you. You basically give them a little bit of an idea what you want to have cooked, and they're brilliant. They would dish up something very nice for you. And so when you come back from your game drive in the evening, your meal is done and cooked and just ready to be eaten. Your lodge is fully equipped with bedding, towels, kitchen facilities, and clean on a daily basis. So you don't have to worry about any of that. There's also a laundry service. So you basically bring your clothes and you are sorted out for your stay at Limpopo-Lipadi. You could also leave some things like bush kit, bush clothes, binoculars, boots, whatever, sun hats at the reserve at the main central storing facility. Right, transfers and borders. Most shareholders find it easiest to rent a vehicle in Johannesburg and drive through the scenic Waterberg through the Limpopo province to either Zanzibar, Platteon, or Martins Drift borders. It all depends on the level of the river, which border you need to use. So about 2 or 3 months of the year, the river is in full flood, and you have to do a bit of a detour to Martins Drift, which is the longest route. But the shortest route is the Zanzibar border post. That's a 5 to 6 hour journey from OR Tambo Airport, and you need to make sure you get to the border before 4 in the afternoon, as it closes at that time. If you stay longer than a week, it might be more cost efficient to use one of our suggested transfer services. We'll then pick you up at Joburg Airport and drop you at Limpopo-Lipadi. At the end of your 2-week stay, they would come and pick you up again, bring you back to the airport. And since you're not going to drive around much with your vehicle on the reserve, because you have the cruisers, when you go on your game drives, you really don't need a vehicle over there. There is also an option to hire a charter plane and fly to Limpopo-Lipadi, which is the town north of Limpopo-Lipadi, where you can then be picked up by Limpopo-Lipadi. But that journey often takes as long as driving. So most cost effective would be just a rental vehicle coming up from OR Tambo, and we would give you very clear directions and maps to help you do that drive. It's a very safe drive because it goes through the Limpopo, very few vehicles on that road. It's not very busy the moment you're out of Joburg and Pretoria.